Equity agents, welcome back. Another monthly minutes vlog, your one-stop shop for all things real estate, company announcements, industry updates, and some motivation to keep you moving forward. And with that, I thought I'd start with a motivational quote that I stumbled upon earlier this week. It's a good one. That quote reads, "Do not let what you cannot do interfere with what you can do." Do not let what you cannot do interfere with what you can do. I thought that was a really good one. It's so easy to get stuck in our own minds, our own headspaces, dwelling on our insecurities, the things that we're not able to accomplish, when really, success, all it takes sometimes is the headspace to focus on the things that you can do, the things that you can control, the things that you are good at. Because I promise you, each of you have a very specific skill set that others don't have. And I encourage you to make that shift into that headspace and accomplish something great with the skill sets that you do have available to you. So let me know in the comments below what you've accomplished this week that you're really proud of, because we like hearing those success stories. That's what keeps us going. So there you go. So thank you for tuning in. If you've happened to stumble upon this video out there on the internet, or maybe you're an agent with one of our other offices and I haven't personally had the chance to meet you yet, my name is Paul Wineinger. I'm the manager over at Equity Colorado Real Estate in the Denver Tech Center. I work with employing brokers Todd and Stacy Schuster, and we are a real estate brokerage, a top 10 Denver Boulder real estate brokerage that provides outstanding support tools and systems to nearly 600 agents across the Colorado Front Range. Our value proposition has always been to provide some of the best support, technology, including free KV Core accounts for those of you watching, for just $4.99 per transaction and $59 per month. E&O insurance included. So that's our quick little summary. We've always empowered our agents to retain more commissions while still getting really great support. We're here for you when you have contract questions or business practice questions, and you get some of the best tools to empower you to help you grow your business. So if that sounds interesting, I would love to chat with you. Never hesitate to reach out. We are always looking for great agents to be added to our team. This whole thing works with you, the agents, and we're excited to help you grow your business. So thank you. We have a ton of great stuff to talk about today, so I'm going to shift the formatting of this vlog up. I'm going to save the company announcements and the monthly Power Professional and award winners until the end of the meeting. So don't forget, you've got a scrubber at the bottom of the video where you can alter the time. So if you want to skip ahead to the company announcements or any other sections of this video, I've included detailed timestamps for you to do so below. Maybe there's something specific you're trying to get out of this meeting, this vlog. Otherwise, follow along. I'm here as your entertainment and your knowledge base, and I hope I can share some stuff with you today that'll help you grow and help you stay inspired. So with that said, diving into one of the first topics, I was recently on a leadership call with our corporate office where Equity's CEO, Tony Ketterling, shared some insightful stats and data with us about home ownership. Within the world of home ownership, I thought it was pretty interesting to see that 32% of homeowners in the country own their homes outright. So that means 32% of homeowners have paid their mortgage off entirely. That's a huge stat. 32% is a substantial portion when it comes to home ownership. Around 39% of homeowners have more than 50% of equity in their homes. Again, and then the last little fact there, the remaining 29% of homeowners have less than 50% equity in their home. So maybe they're new homeowners, working on paying off that debt, paying those monthly mortgage payments. But the takeaways here, home ownership is still one of the strongest and best investments that you can make. You are putting a roof over your head while you simultaneously invest and rebuild equity in that investment, which is a pretty big deal. You can't do that with stocks. You can't do that with sports cars. You can't do that with vintage guitars, which I'm a guitar player. I'm into those vintage guitars. I'll share that with you. Again, these are stats to help you articulate the value of home ownership and why it's important. It's the safest investment that you can make because you're putting a roof over your head. Another little stat within this conversation, Median home prices are expected to double by the year 2050. So that is another powerful reason to invest now in home ownership. And again, you guys are the cheerleaders. You guys are the experts who explain why home ownership is so important. So even though the interest rates, yes, we're all hearing about the interest rates and how high they are, and they're causing some buyers to postpone their purchase, this is a great talking point to really showcase why home ownership is so important. And another quick little one-liner, 6%, 7% interest rates, that's nothing in comparison to 100% interest, which is rent. When a renter is paying their rent, they're paying 100% interest and they don't get that money back. So 6%, 7% interest rates are quite doable. And you can talk about equity and median home prices doubling in 2050. So there you go. I hope you found that information helpful. You can pass it on and spread the knowledge. So moving on to the big topic for this month's vlog, I had a couple conversations with a few equity agents, and the question came up, what do I do if my listing is not selling? And that's a big question. Maybe you have a listing that's been on the market and you're approaching 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 4 weeks, or maybe more, and showings are very limited and you haven't received many offers, or the offers that you have received are considered lowball offers. These were all details from the conversations that I had. And the ultimate question, what should I do? What can I do? Did I do something wrong? And you're kind of looking at us as a sounding board to make sure that you've priced the home correctly, and what strategies can you do to get the job done for your sellers? Well, that's a big question. There's a lot of moving parts to look at, but I wanted to share kind of a general response of mine and of Todd and Stacy's when we answer this question, just so you have some talking points to think through if you're in that situation where a listing isn't getting much activity. So diving right into those details, first and foremost, pricing is everything. And this isn't a pricing strategy conversation, but when it comes to listings, price is going to be the most important thing to get your home to sell. And I'll start with this, that you have to price the home right out of the gate correctly, accurately, when the buyer interest is the highest. So let's start there. There's this concept of the wave, and I'll flash a graph on screen here. The wave represents buyer interest. And as you can see, the buyer interest is most exciting right at the start of the listing process when your listing goes active. And I try to think of it as, buyers are like piranhas out there. They're always watching the market. They're refreshing the listings. They kind of know what inventory they're dealing with. And if they haven't found something, they're very critical of what new listings are going to show up. So when your listing goes active, feeding frenzy, the piranhas go straight to that listing and they look at it, they pick it apart. Could it be the one that's best for me? And that's the moment that you have to leverage. You have to leverage that moment when buyer interest is the highest. Because as you'll see by the wave, as time progresses, the excitement kind of declines. The buyer interest goes away. And then you're kind of stuck in a not so fun territory where you might feel like you're overpriced, or maybe you need to do upgrades and I'm not getting any showings, and you're back to square one where there's not much activity happening on your listing. And then new buyers that come to the table, sure, you might get a showing or two from those new buyers that come on to the market, but the big, crescendo of buyer interest has already passed, and now you've got to kind of go back in time. Ideally, with the wave, you want to make that listing go active on Thursday or Friday, and hopefully be under contract by Sunday or Monday that following week. That's a sign that you've leveraged that buyer interest. So that's a great starting point for our conversation, because you can't really go back. Once you've passed the wave and the buyer interest has been, depleted, you kind of have to then think backwards and do some things in your power to go back to get the most interest. And that's what we're going to talk about here in a minute. But make sure you spend time pricing your home competitively, accurately. Spend time studying those comps and price the home competitively in hopes that you get into multiple offer scenarios to drive that purchase price up. You don't want to be too high right out of the gate, because that interest is going to decline rapidly. So that's the concept of the wave, which is our first talking point, buyer interest. So if you're in that category where the buyer interest is kind of passed and you're sitting in that 3 to 4 week territory with not much movement, obviously you're going to want to consider a price reduction. That price is the most important piece. But before we get to the price reduction, let's take a look at some other factors to make sure you're thinking of everything. And so the next talking point is to perfect everything that you can control. And what are some of the things that you can control when you take on a listing? You can control the price, which we already talked about, your marketing, your photos, your staging, landscaping of the property. Those are things that you can physically control. And let's dive into those one by one. Photos, photography, photos of the home. That's the first thing a buyer sees when they look at your listing. And if you have photos that are kind of dark and dingy, maybe they're out of order, meaning they're not walking the buyer through the home, starting with an exterior shot to the front door, into the open, living room, into the kitchen. You have to tell a story with the photos. But if your photos are taken on an iPhone and they're just dark and dingy right out of the gate, a buyer is going to pick up on that. They're not going to be very excited to go see the home if it doesn't capture their attention right away. So it's imperative that you hire a professional photographer to take your photos. And their photos are so affordable these days. You can find really affordable photographers who charge about $150, anywhere from $150 to $400 for quality, bright listing photos. And they're professionals. They know how to showcase the best features of the home, by opening up all the windows and making sure the lighting is just right. And then taking those photos back to their studio and applying some editing to really brighten those photos up and make them shine. Whereas, pictures taken on an iPhone aren't going to do that for you. So always hire a photographer, a professional photographer. And at the very least, if you're one of the agents who's taking those photos yourself, you have to use a professional grade camera and you have to apply some editing to it. You have to brighten those pictures up, turn the contrast up, the brightness up, the exposure up, anything you can do to make those photos more appealing. That's the very first piece that's going to capture a buyer's attention. The next step, staging. That's another topic that comes up often. Is the home staged? Put yourself in the buyer's shoes, and a buyer wants to picture this home as someplace that they can live that's nice and cozy and decorated. And if you have no furniture in there, nothing on the walls, that could be beneficial to a buyer because they could picture some of their stuff in there. But more often than not, buyers want to see what the home is capable of. And what I mean by that is really great decorating, great staging. So if you can afford a stager, absolutely stage the home. Statistics show that homes that are staged do sell faster than listings that are not staged. So we've got a long list of stagers within our company, even some equity agents that can provide staging services. But take a look at that vendors page. Staging is important when it comes to selling a home. So next up, landscaping. Landscaping is another deterrent. If the landscaping, the garden, the lawn isn't in tip-top shape, it kind of does distract a buyer. And I'd say this one goes hand in hand with my last talking point, which is don't showcase the bad on your listing. Showcase the good on your listing. And what I mean by that, in your pictures, if you have, a picture of a lawn that needs some love, towards the front of your photos, in no sequential order, and there's a picture of a dead lawn as the third or fourth photo in, again, that's a deterrent for a buyer. They're going to see that right away before they see the rest of the home and all of its beautiful features that they might fall in love with. So the idea here is to focus on the best features first when it comes on photos. Maybe that buyer will fall in love with the rest of the home. And by the time they get to the picture of the lawn that needs a little bit of love, they love the home so much that they're willing to put in some work into that backyard or front yard to get it back into shape. And that's just an example here. There are a million things. You want to showcase the good. And if that seller can do a couple landscaping renovations to brighten things up for the photos, they're definitely going to benefit from that. We've seen listings that do go under contract right away after a seller does some minor upgrades, new bark or new gravel in the garden areas, or a fresh trim or reseed of the lawn. Those things do go a long way. So again, not the end all be all, but we're looking at things we can control, and we've got to leverage every ounce of those things that we can control. The last little piece that I always check in on, what are the finishes of the home? Are there upgrades? Has the seller upgraded the things that are going to be most important, like kitchen cabinets and, tile backsplashes and things of that sort? If there are things that can be updated that won't cost the seller too much money, that have a nice appeal to the home, by all means, I say those things should be focused on. And that's something you can do mid-listing while you're listed. So little things that you can tweak: photos, staging, little upgrades, landscaping. That's kind of the discussion you have with your seller before you migrate into the next talking point, which is building anticipation for that listing once the buyer's interest is kind of depleted. So when it comes to strategy, back to that concept of the wave, buyer interest is kind of depleted right now. You've been on the market for 4 or 5 weeks. What can you do to breathe some new life into this listing? And what we usually recommend is to pull that listing off the market, go into the withdrawn status, assuming your seller is okay with this, of course. In the withdrawn status, that listing will no longer show up in searches. So anybody that might have looked at that listing, those buyers who it's on their radar, but it's not quite the right price, or it just misses the mark enough for them not to set another showing or not to write an offer, they're going to see that that listing is withdrawn, and that's going to spark some interest. I wonder what the seller's doing to incentivize more buyers. Maybe they're doing some upgrades. And again, that's your second chance to leverage excitement. So in the withdrawn status, that's when you can revisit all of those items that we talked about, a couple minutes ago. Maybe you take some new photos. Maybe the seller does some quick renovations over the next week or so, however long it needs to be to get those renovations completed. Maybe you alter the existing photos by brightening the contrast, the exposure, breathe some new life into the photos. But doing that within the withdrawn status is definitely going to maybe spark some more interest for those buyers that know the listing exists. The other advantage here in the withdrawn status, new buyers are constantly coming to the market. And so while they're searching for homes in their search criteria, they're not going to see a withdrawn listing. They're going to look at only the active listings. So if a new buyer comes on and they're searching the market and they're only seeing these active listings, your listing will then be a new listing for that new buyer when you put it back to the active status. And again, it's kind of a way to capture that buyer excitement back to the wave conversation when you've already been stagnant sitting on the market for a little while. So go to the withdrawn status. So you make the repairs, you do the upgrades, you brighten the photos up, or you get new photos taken. You're in that withdrawn status. And once you go back to active, you have another mini wave where new buyers and existing buyers now see these new photos, and it's kind of a way to breathe some life into that listing. And that leads us to our last little talking point, which we've already kind of addressed: the price. So as I stated at the beginning of this conversation, the price is the most important piece. The consumer dictates the market value. And in other words, the buyer is going to tell you how much that home is worth. And if you're just too high, the next solution, you've done everything in your power. You've controlled the photos, you've controlled the renovations, you've done some staging, some landscaping. The only other thing that is preventing that listing from selling is the price. You're too high. We've kind of always had this general rule when it comes to price reductions. If you don't have any showings, or if you haven't received any offers in 2 weeks, it's time to reduce the price by $10,000. So every 2 weeks, with no activity, reduce that price by $10,000. Now, of course, you can be more aggressive with that approach, depending on the circumstances and what your seller is looking for. Maybe you drop the price by $15,000 or $20,000, depending on what comps are available. Think of any other product that you purchase. Maybe it's a new computer or new appliances. The market value, maybe a new dishwasher, is $2,000. And as a buyer, as a consumer, you're thinking, I could probably justify it. I could justify the purchase if it drops down to $1,500. And so what do you do as a consumer? You wait for things to go on sale, or you find a way to buy down that price as much as you can by offsetting, selling other things so you have more purchasing power. It's the same concept when it comes to listings. So if you've done everything else in your power, the upgrades, the landscaping, the staging, the better photos, the next thing is a price reduction, and you have to be aggressive or as lenient with those price reductions as your seller wants you to be. But that's what's going to sell the home. So as kind of a bonus little talking point, if you're sitting on the market with your listing and you've noticed other listings in the neighborhood have gone under contract before yours, check out those prices. What are they priced at? What did that home have that your listing did not have? Maybe there's things that like a garage or fully upgraded kitchen that are going to offset the price of those homes in a side-by-side comparison. You have to remember that buyers are more strategic right now. They have to make sure they're getting every dollar out of their purchase with those interest rates being what they are. So side by side, if your listing is lacking in comparison to another listing, that buyer is probably going to go for the other listing if they can get a bigger garage or a basement or a slightly more upkept lawn. Those are the things that are going to sway a buyer towards another listing. And that's why it's so important to focus on those things that you can control. So once you've looked at those other listings that might have gone under contract while yours is sitting, give those listing agents a call, see if they'll share any information. You can ask them, hey, what are you under contract at? Do you feel comfortable sharing that information? I'm just curious. And you might be met with an agent who isn't willing to share that information, and that's okay. You don't have to push them, but more often than not, listing agents are willing to share that information. And anything you can do to gain more insights to help your seller sell their home, you want to do those things. So I hope that information is helpful. Again, there's no magic bullet. There's no end all be all answer to get a listing sold. Of course, price is everything, but those are the most common talking points when you guys call in with the question of, what can I do to get my listing sold? I haven't seen any activity. So I hope it's helpful. So that leads us to our next segment. I'm going to run through some quick company announcements and some industry updates, and then we'll get into our power professionals here to close out the vlog. But first and foremost, our quarterly workshop is coming up on Wednesday, June 21st. That'll be here at the DTC office. So please mark your calendars. This is the opportunity for you to network with other equity agents. We'll have breakfast courtesy of Own Home Loans as the sponsor. We always try to bring you insightful information to help you grow your business and walk away feeling motivated and inspired. So definitely plug in. This is the best place to learn and meet your fellow equity agents. The quarterly workshop, Wednesday, June 21st. The next piece of news is not as fun, but it's worth putting on your radar, and it's that RE Colorado will be increasing their monthly fee to $54.50 starting on July 1st. So as you're looking through your balances, just be aware that fee is increasing by about $4 starting on July 1st. And to close out the vlog, my favorite part of this session, now we get to acknowledge our May Power Professional and Award winners. I know we're May 31st is when we're posting this, so we're a little bit behind schedule. Thank you for your patience here. But with that being said, we would love to acknowledge all of the efforts of our agents who closed 2 or more transactions. We've got a really good list this month. I was so excited to take a handful of you out to the Power Professional Luncheon. And just this serves as another reminder, if you close 2 or more transactions in a month, to specify it has to close and be paid out, as that's the easiest way for us to track your progress on those transactions is when they're actually closed and paid. I will take you out to lunch along with Amir Razi, the president of Own Home Loans, for a nice lunch to celebrate your achievements for closing 2 or more transactions. But without any further ado, I would love to acknowledge the efforts of our May Power professionals, starting with Justin Savoy with 2 transactions. Great job, Justin. Way to go. Denise Dixon with 2 transactions. Way to go, Denise. Nice job. And next up, we've got Lori Sanders with 2 transactions. Great job, Lori. And next on the list, we've got Allie Nelson with 2 transactions. Way to go, Allie. Nice job. Next up, we've got Tamila Aspen with 3 transactions. Way to go, Tamila. 3 transactions. And next, we've got Najud Hogue, a recurring Power Pro. Congratulations, Najud, 3 transactions. And next up, we've got Sarah Klassen with 3 transactions. Way to go, Sarah. 3 transactions. That's great. And the next 2 agents are our top agents for the month of April. And as you'll see, this was a four-way tie between these three agents, a four-way tie between Tamila, Najud, Sarah, and Stephanie Fellhauer with 3 transactions, and also the recipient of our most transactions closed award. And just to specify, when we've got multiple agents with the same number of closings like that, Stephanie, Sarah, Najud, Tamila, all closing 3 transactions, amazing achievement. We then separate those deals out by the top sales volume among those contenders. And Stephanie Fellhauer came out on top with the highest sales volume out of those 4 agents. So congratulations, Stephanie, most transactions award with 3 transactions. Not to discredit Sarah, Najud, or Tamila, who also did an outstanding job of closing 3 transactions. Way to go, everybody there. And last but certainly not least, our top sales agent award this month goes to Sunny Park. Great job, Sunny. With 2 transactions, Sunny had a total sales volume of 1.9 million, which is why she's walking away with the top sales agent award. Great job, Sunny. I know you've worked really hard on those last 2 closings, and it's just great to see your face on this award recognition segment of our vlog this month. So great job, everybody. And of course, as I always say, we know how hard all of you are working out there. Just because you didn't make the list with 2 or more transactions, doesn't mean we don't notice all of your hard work and all of the business that you're putting together for the months ahead. And I can't wait to celebrate these achievements with you at a next upcoming Power Professional Award ceremony. So great job. Keep up the hard work. And if you have any questions along the way, we're here to support you. All right, everybody. Well, if you've stuck with me this long, I appreciate your time. Thank you for tuning in. This concludes the Monthly Minutes vlog for this month. And just a quick reminder, we will not be recording a Monthly Minutes vlog for June, as we do not record those vlogs when we're meeting for our quarterly workshop meetings here, which will be on June 21st. So in that case, we will see you in July with another Monthly Minutes vlog. And let me know if there's any content you'd like me to address. If there's anything you got out of this video, please let us know in the comments. I always love hearing from each of you. Have a great rest of your week, a great rest of your month, and we're here if you need us. Take care, everybody. Thank you.